The New York Mets made multiple moves today, and this has major implications. As you see on your screen now, Thursday's moves include rookie Justin Hagenman, Max Kranick, Jose Siri, and an unknown player. Stay tuned to hear who Jose Siri's replacement is. Mets made a lot of moves today on Thursday, April the 17th, after dropping their second series of the year. You have to date back to the opening series to see when the Mets lost their first series of 2025, and then they just dropped another one in Minnesota. A lot going on in the Met world. They are currently playing the St. Louis Cardinals at Citi Field, and a warm welcome back to Mets Digest. I'm your host today, Mike Duda, and as always, I want to start you guys off with some statistics. 77.2% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. Please do us a favor here at Mets Digest. Help us get to 4,000 subscribers and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring you content about the New York Metropolitans. So plenty to go over today. There's 4 moves. Really, it's 2 moves that has 2 moves within one another because one player got called down / went to the IL and the other makes the MLB roster. So let's start this one off with our first move. The New York Mets optioned right-hand rookie Justin Hagenman to the Syracuse Mets, the AAA affiliate, and in the corresponding move, New York recalled right-hand pitcher Max Kranick from Syracuse. Check out my recent video from earlier today, Thursday, about Hagenman, and you'll understand a little bit more about my opinions on him, how he did. But basically, in a nutshell, he looked really, really good in his first ever MLB outing. 3 1/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, just 1 earned run, 4 Ks, including the first batter that he ever faced in the pros, a 2.70 ERA, and 64% strikes, which is really good from a guy that came in as the second player to pitch on a bullpen by committee day yesterday. Again, check out my most recent video from just a couple of hours ago to get a little bit more details on the moves. Now, optioning him makes a lot of sense. That's the first time he was ever in the pros, so he has 3 options. You can send him back down to the minors. It doesn't really hurt. You obviously lose it, so now he's down to 2, but that's okay. And you get Max Kranick back. I completely understand the moves because Hagenman threw 50 pitches yesterday. He's going to need to rest anyway. Might as well get that roster spot back with Max Kranick, who went down to the minors yesterday on Wednesday because he was on rest from the 31 pitches he threw on Tuesday. So this all makes a ton of sense, but going forward, what I would like to see personally is Danny Young not be a part of this pro ball club, at least for the meantime. I think Hagenman did well enough, and he showed enough that he should be the guy that gets that bullpen spot as opposed to Young for now. And if you're going to tell me that the Mets need a lefty in their bullpen, they already have one. They have veteran left-hander A.J. Minter, who's already established himself as a good bullpen piece. Granted, he hasn't had the best start with the Mets, but he's already established himself well before signing with the Mets as a veteran reliever that is reliable. So you're going to have that lefty in the bullpen. Why not give Hagenman a shot, especially if he could be the real deal, and kind of someone like Max Kranick has been right now because, man, Kranick has been awesome. Look at these stats so far this year. A 1.54 ERA in nearly 12 innings pitched. Just 2 earned runs given up and 1 home run, 7 Ks, and no walks. I hate walks. If you don't know me, I hate walks. It's free bases. He has given up none of them so far, and he has just been really solid over 7 outings. I mean, look at that first outing. That was the first time he pitched in an MLB game since 2022, and he comes into a pressure situation and gets 2 critical outs. So Kranick is definitely someone we're excited to have back here in Flushing. But again, I think Hagenman established himself enough to proceed with him having a roster spot once he is done with his rest. I think he should be the guy that comes up in place of Danny Young, who just really has not been good ever since putting on blue and orange. So the second set of roster moves came, honestly, I think it was within the exact same time frame as the 2 pitching moves. Here is the unknown player. It's Jose Azocar. Now, the first move, I don't know why it's reversed. That's the way MLB.com had it. The New York Mets placed Jose Siri on the 10-day IL with a left tibia fracture. If you didn't hear any of the updates, I recommend you go back to my videos on Monday and Tuesday. That way you can hear all about the Jose Siri situation. You can actually see the injury for yourself. You can see the play that created it. Basically, what this means in plain English, the second move that New York selected the contract of Jose Azocar from Syracuse is he's on the big league roster. They brought him up from AAA. Very, very simple. Now, I believe he's on the roster right now because that's what MLB.com has. And when the Met game started, when they did the starting lineup graphic, he was on the bench. However, we don't know if he's in Flushing because Gary Cohen, the Met play-by-play announcer, did not announce anything about Azocar. My assumption is he is because the Syracuse Mets, the AAA affiliate, were in the midst of a series at home. So they were in Syracuse, and the big league roster is obviously in Flushing, Queens, down near Long Island, about 6, maybe 7 hours away by drive to Syracuse. Could even be like, actually, no, it's more about 5 the more I think about it. So that's a very easy plane ride. When you're the pros, it's a little different than the minors because you're going to get bussed around. You might, take stuff like that. But when you get to the pros, you're going to take planes. And, of course, Azocar was probably on a plane and is probably already on the team and on the bench right now, and Mendy can go to him if they want, especially because the Mets only have 3 players on their bench, so Azocar really helps that out. So let's learn a little bit about Jose Azocar. These are his career numbers. You see the OPS plus at 74. That's not great. And the OBP is low, the batting average is low, OPS is low, negative wins above replacement with the average for the MLB being a 1. He's played exactly 214 games. Not great. Honestly, these numbers are pretty bad. However, he is basically like Jose Siri. He is a guy that is big defensively. He has speed, and that's exactly what the Mets want. They want a capable center fielder. You see, he has played in each of the last 3 seasons, and he had a pretty good spring training. Now, I needed to show the San Diego spring trainings that he had just because that way you could see the average and the OBP and actually what the statistic is. So he played in 21 games. He had 46 plate appearances, 44 ABs, hit 250, exactly 11 at-bats, a 283 OBP for an OPS of 601 with a homer and 6 ribbies during the spring. Not great, but honestly not the worst. And again, that defense is what they're going to focus on, and that speed, especially because Brian Germinio of Rising Apple says he has, quote, above average arm strength. So he's not the worst option. I personally wanted Nico Goodrum, and again, you'll know that if you go back to my videos about Siri from Monday and Tuesday. I really expressed my opinions there about how I wanted Goodrum to be on this roster because of that versatility for the infield and the outfield and his established veterans presence. But it is what it is. I'm not mad about Azocar. I think he's a solid depth piece. And basically what the Mets want out of him is someone that they can have as that 4th outfielder when Tyrone Taylor needs a day off, or perhaps Nimmo or Soto. So the last thing that we need to go over are his current stats in the minors. Again, I apologize, just to show you the actual statistic, what it is. I need to include his boatload of years in the minors, but focus on 2025. He's played 11 games, 41 ABs, and he is hitting to a 244 average, so basically right around where that spring training was at, but the OPS is way higher, above 700. 1 homer and a couple of RBIs. Not the best, but you're not going to get the best. You need a guy who's a veteran, and what I think is a more important stat is the 4 stolen bases that he's had so far. And when you look across the numbers throughout the years, last year he had over 30 steals. He had about 20 in 2023. There's a lot of stolen bases coming from this guy, which is kind of what Jose Siri was. A defensive player who can steal a lot of bags when he gets on base, but he rarely gets on base. I think you're going to see basically the exact same thing out of Azocar. So you're getting a worse version of Jose Siri in Jose Azocar, both Jose's. So that's basically where we're at with those two moves. As always, I want to get to a couple of comments that you guys left on the last video. Only two to go over today. They're both from Madeline. Wow, and you are hysterical, but correct. These were on my Jose Siri video and my first one. And I really, really appreciate it, Madeline. Thank you for the support. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. The moves have been set. The Mets finally did something about Jose Siri. They finally put him on the 10-day IL. They brought up Jose Azocar in his place. Justin Hageman goes back to the minors, but for now, hopefully he can come back to the pros sooner rather than later. Max Kranick is also back in Flushing. Mets play the Cardinals right about now, so hopefully they win by the time this video is up, or maybe they're in the process of winning. I honestly haven't watched the pitch. I'm going back and watching it on DVR. Again, as always, thank you very much for watching today's video. Stay tuned for the next one, and as always, let's go Mets!